This is a audio video response to Jeff Shiegel's Schleg Daddy's OTRS Central um, holiday humbug video on TNA, some of the biggest flaws, if not the biggest flaws, in professional wrestling history. And you know, I watched this video, Jeff, and you do bring up a lot of good points about TNA. I mean, TNA potentially has all the potential, a little play on words there, a little potentially has all the tools, we should say, has all the tools to be a great wrestling company, to be a great professional wrestling sports entertainment company. They do. They have all the tools. They have all the resources. But yet, they fail to find the correct way to utilize them. You point out the fact that AJ is no longer under contract, or will no longer be under contract with TNA. When the time comes in the next few weeks. Now, I already did a video asking the question, is AJ Styles gone from TNA? And quite frankly, I don't think he is. Because if there's one thing I will give TNA credit on, and I think you have to give them credit for this too, is they're the kind of company that will keep things like contracts, like contract signings, negotiations, and all that. They will do their best to keep them secret, but they'll also do their best to kind of throw you off and make it seem like, make it seem like things are not going the way they should, when in fact they are. Again, it goes back to the whole situation with Devon. Over a year ago, last year, when he was revealed to be part of Aces and Eights. And this was after he supposedly left TNA. His contract was supposedly up. And everybody, every news source, every website, the IWC, the YWC, they bought into it. And then come Bound for Glory, there he is, revealed as part of Aces and Eights. So basically what I'm saying is it's not beneath TNA to hide the truth from a lot of people. It's not beneath them to be secretive about contract negotiations and thus at the same time trying to throw off the outside, if you know what I mean, trying to throw those on the outside looking in by reading reports and watching videos and stuff like that. So, again, I don't really think he's gone from TNA. But like I said in that other video, Jeff, if he is gone, the only way I'm gonna be proven wrong, and the only way anybody else like myself that believe that he is still part of this company, and that TNA is only saying this kind of stuff or is reporting this kind of stuff to throw us off, the only way we'll be proven wrong is if we get some kind of remix of his theme music, or some kind of theme music that's similar to what he had in TNA, or kind of describes who he is. And we see him coming out as a surprise entrant, as an unexpected, just out of the blue, surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. That's the only way we'll be proven wrong. But that's next month. This is now. And right now, I still believe he's under contract. And why? Well, let's just say there's a situation at the end of one of the at the end. There's a situation. There's a promo cut, if you will, at the end of an upcoming Impact Wrestling broadcast that kind of gives you the idea that he's still part of the company. But again, only way I'm going to be proven wrong is if he shows up as an out of the blue surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. That's how. That's how. But again, I do agree with you right now. I mean, I do agree with what you said right. Well, not right now, but in the video. I do agree with you. You know, they currently got a very hot storyline going on right now. And one of the main focuses of this storyline, one of the main individuals in the storyline is possibly without a contract and could possibly be gone, and TNA is doing nothing about it. I mean, I think anybody would agree, Jeff, that if AJ Styles does leave TNA, if he really does leave TNA, if that's it, if he and TNA are just completely done, then to me, and I believe to you, and I believe you feel the same way, and anybody else listening to this feels the same way, if AJ Styles is really done after this storyline is over with, or is concluded, or cliffhanged, or whatever you want to call it for the time being, if he is officially gone, then you know, I know, and everybody else knows that will be the biggest nail in TNA's coffin that could ever be hammered in. Because that literally will be a death blow. And you don't think for 1 second Viacom is not trying to tell him, hey, you need to sign this guy? I'm sure they are. Again, though, this goes back to what I was saying. They're not going to let anybody really know what's really going on. They know the IWC. They know a lot of wrestling insiders on the internet will report this kind of stuff. So they got to do what they can to throw people off. And that's exactly what they're doing here with AJ. They're trying to throw us off. And again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think I am. But another thing you point out, but some other things you have pointed out, I do agree with, Jeff. You know, TNA has made some changes that have been positive, but has also been negative. One thing that made TNA so different, and you're right about this is something that they shouldn't have done. The only reason they did this was to please the likes of Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan. And the reason they did this to please them was because they believed they were the answer to get them to that next level, and they weren't. I mean, yeah, it gave them just a tiny bit, it did give them a tiny bit of recognition, a tiny bit of notoriety, but in the end, it really didn't do much. And you took the one thing that defied your company. They took the one thing, Jeff, that defied their company, made their company different among all other wrestling companies around the world. They took it away, to please Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. All because they felt Hogan and Bischoff was the answer to making them at the same level of WWE, and they weren't. You know, a lot of people like yourself, Jeff, you hearken back to January 4th, 2010. you hearken back to that time when TNA, one of the biggest mistakes they could have ever done was to compete with WWE, and in the long run end up failing. But you hearken back to this, and you say that within this one broadcast and several future broadcasts afterwards, we saw not just Hulk Hogan officially debut. We didn't just see Eric Bischoff officially debut. We saw Val Venus, Sean Mooney, or Sean Morley debut. Sean Morley, Val Venus debut. We saw the Nasty Boys debut. We saw Jeff Hardy return. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, why? We even saw Ric Flair debut. Now you might be saying to yourself, why? Why are these guys just suddenly showing up? Well, here's the one thing I don't know if I don't know if anybody notices. A lot of these guys that showed up, Val Venus, Nasty Boys, Ric Flair, Anderson, RVD. What is the one thing a lot of these guys had in common? The one thing. I'll tell you what it was. All of them had recently come off, maybe except for Jeff Hardy, all of them had recently come off of the Hulkamania Runs Wild Tour down in Australia. That's right. Excuse me there. That's right. Literally in one night or 1 month or so, whatever, TNA not only got rid of the six-sided ring to please Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff because they felt they were the answer to get them to the next level, but within that time frame, those first month or so, first few weeks, first few months, basically what TNA was turned into was a national stage for the Hulkamania Runs Wild Tour. That's what it was. That's what it got turned into. A national stage for the Hulkamania Runs Wild Tour. That's why you saw the Nasty Boys there. That's why you saw Anderson, even though he's remained. That's why you saw RVD. That's why you saw Ric Flair. That's why you saw Val Venus. Because they all were coming off the Hulkamania Runs Wild Tour. And Hulk Hogan basically, I mean, I'm a Hulkamaniac like you are. I've been a Hulkamaniac my whole life. But just like you mentioned, but here's the thing. Hulk Hogan obviously made a deal with these guys saying, hey, when I go to TNA, I'll make sure to get you guys in. And why? Because everybody wanted to see the dream tag team match between Team 3D and the Nasty Boys? Okay, fine, all right, I can accept that. Why? Because they wanted to see Val Venus go over who? I can't even think of the name right now. What was it? Kazarian? Daniels? That's the only reason a lot of these guys came on board. And the only one to remain out of that whole bunch was Anderson. He's the only one that remains. I mean, you even brought in Matt Hardy a year later. Matt Hardy. And again, except for Anderson, every single one of those guys are no longer with TNA. And you know why? Because they were only brought in not just to give them a second opportunity on the national level, not just because maybe Hulk Hogan promised he'd get them in there, but the fact is, and this is one of TNA's biggest flaws, and this has been a big flaw for them for the past 11 years, The reason they brought him in is to shove it in WWE's face, like saying, hey, WWE, look who's wrestling for us. Look who we got. Oh, look what kind of matches we're making. Basically, that is why. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, that is why. That is one of TNA's biggest flaws. That is why people can't take this company seriously. Because they do this stuff. And Jeff, you're right. They do take these already established WWE, WCW, ECW alumni, and they put them in the spotlight and basically book them to go over the already original established talent of TNA. Those that basically put TNA on the map, they were basically TNA originals, up-and-comers, if you will, like a Kazarian, like a Daniels, like an AJ. They basically booked them to job to these alumni of WCW, ECW, and WWE because in TNA's mind, in their business sense, which is one of the most dumbest things they can think of, is they believe, hey, if we put so-and-so over this guy and so-and-so over that guy, WWE's going to have to pay attention to us, and they're going to have to take us seriously, and everybody else is going to have to take us seriously. Yeah, let me ask you this. Let me ask TNA this. Jeff, I know you're listening, but let me ask them this. And let me ask anybody else listening to this. How well has that worked out for you guys? TNA. How well has that philosophy worked out for you guys? It hasn't worked well, has it? And what about the fact that, like everybody's mentioning, what if? I mean, somebody's even asking people at NoDQ.com, Aaron Rift at NoDQ.com, this question: what happens if AJ shows up at the Royal Rumble? What then? How well is things working out for you now? 11 years later, and now suddenly you're starting to get your act together. 11 years later. 11 years later, you're finally starting to get your act together in some ways. But oh, no. You know, you can't even do that right. You can't even do that right. Let me explain. You see, everything Jeff said, everything you say, Jeff, in this video about them always putting over these alumni guys from WWE, WCW, and ECW, it's true. But you said one of the biggest flaws as well was always putting them as world champions, making them world champions. Well, at least you indicated that. And you're right. It almost seems, not automatically, but it almost seems only a few months after, or maybe even a few weeks after, it seems at times, or mainly just a few months after, you have the established WWE, ECW, WCW alumni guy getting a shot at the world title and becoming world champion. Yeah. You have that happening. And how many times has that happened? I'll tell you. It's happened a lot. The only person that actually had to wait longer than anybody after he arrived in TNA was Raven. And that was by 2-3 years? And that's it? All he had to do was wait 2 or 3 years and he finally became NWA champion? And how did they treat him? They had him lose the title at a BCW event in Canada. Now, I admit that was kind of innovative. Well, not innovative. That was kind of shocking. No one probably expected Raven to lose the title because believe it or not, Raven was getting over with the crowd because he had been wanting to be the champion of TNA. He'd been wanting to be the NWA champion, and now here he was. How do I know? I freaking met Raven. I met Raven in person. I took a picture with him. I saw him defend the championship in a tag team match in Lawrence, Kansas at the community building with Crow as his partner against Michael Strider and I can't think of the other guy he was teamed with. But I saw that. And he was over with the crowd there. He was over with the crowd in TNA. There's no denying that. But how do they treat him? They treat him like crap at the end of his reign by having him lose the title at a BCW event in Canada. And why? Because, again, one of the stupidity moves on their part is that basically they feel that they need to have their founder, Jeff Jarrett, who I will admit I do like Jeff Jarrett. I'm a fan of his work. You know, his in-ring work and everything. I'm a fan of his. I do respect him. I do respect what he's accomplished in this business, whether you agree with that or not. I do respect what he's accomplished in this business in all three companies. But this is the dumbest booking decision you could do, because you have a guy that, yeah, he's an alumni of WWE, WCW, and ECW. And here's a guy that waited almost 2 years, over 2 years, to finally become champion. And yet you're going to take it off of him because you pretty much feel that the best business decision to make is to put the TNA NWA championship around the waist of your founder, Jeff Jarrett, because you feel that's going to make ratings. No, it's not going to make ratings. And obviously it's proven that. It's been proven it would not make ratings. It's been proven. Now, even though Raven is the exception of a WWE, ECW, WCW alumni that had to wait a lot longer than everybody else, you have guys like Kurt Angle. You have guys like Rhino. You have guys like Christian. Here are guys that basically only waited a few months, maybe 3, 4, 5. Maybe for Angle, the longest I think he waited was what? 8 months? 8, 7 months. That's it. That was the longest he had to wait. And what happened within that time frame of those few months that people like Rhino and Christian, you know, and Jeff Hardy even, and RVD, Rob Van Dam, what happened? A lot of those guys within a shortest time span, within a shorter time frame of someone like Raven, who's just like them, an alumni of the companies they were a part of, what happens? Within the short span of, let's say, the longest being 8 months, the longest being 8 months, 8 to 9 months. Let's put it that way. 8 to 9 months being the longest, you know, waiting time for people like, let's say, Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy. Those two were probably waiting the longest. What happens? Within the span of 8 to 9 months being the longest waiting time, what happens? They all become champion. That's what happens. They all become champion. RVD didn't even have to wait that long. All it was like a few months. He beats AJ Styles, becomes TNA World Champion. So what? So TNA could say, hey, look, WWE, we made your WWE, a guy you screwed as WWE champion and ECW champion, we made him our TNA champion. And we did it in a lot shorter time than you did. Is that why they do that? To rub it in the face, to say, hey, look, we took Rob Van Dam, and with a short few months of his debut in our company, we made him the TNA World Champion? Is that why they do this? You know, is it the same way with Christian? Christian only had to wait, I think, to what, February of 2006 before he became world champion? And why? Just to say, hey, look, we're pushing Christian and making him our world champion, all because you guys wouldn't do it, and now we're showing you we're doing it to rub it in your face. And the same thing with Rhino. Even though his reign was short, why would you do that? Just to show WWE you can? And that what is it? You're trying to send a message to WWE saying, hey, look, we made Rhino our champion. Yeah, he lost it within a short amount of time, in the shorter amount of time than normal. But hey, he was our champion. I mean, seriously, is that why TNA does this? Is this why TNA does this? Just because they want to say, hey, look, we're taking all these guys WWE never wanted to put in the main event and never make world champion. And hey, look, we've made them world champion before they did. And guess what? We're rubbing it in your faces. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. And then recently you take someone like Bully Ray. Bubba Ray, if you will, Brother Ray. A guy that was known as an established tag team wrestler. And you break him and Devon up. You make them go their separate ways. Yeah, you reunite them a few times in aces and eights. But majority of the time you make them singles wrestlers. And why? Huh? Because now you want to prove to WWE, hey, look, not only can we make Bully Ray lose some weight and be a good in-ring competitor, which he always has been, but we're also going to make him the world champion. Something you guys had an opportunity to do when you separated Team 3D, but you didn't. You know, to me, this is stupidity 101. Yes, it's okay if you want to make people world champion because maybe you feel it's going to help your company out. But when your company starts lagging in the ratings, you start losing viewers, you start losing fan bases. When your buy rates go down, when your attendance goes down, maybe making a certain somebody that was established as a tag team wrestler a world champion may not be the best decision in the world. It's not the best decision, folks. It's not the best decision in the world. You see, if you're going to sign these alumni guys, that's fine. But do us a favor. If you're going to give them any kind of championships, don't give them the world title right off the bat. Don't give them the world title not even a year into existence. Do what you did with Raven. Make them at least work for it. I'm sure Scott Levy went to you guys and said, look, I want to wait. I want to earn my title shot. I want to earn the championship. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you guys could have done that. But no, you take guys like Rhino, you take guys like Christian, Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, and you basically give them the title not even a year into the contract, not even a year into the contract with you guys or into the deal with you guys. You don't even wait a year. You know, a lot of people can say WWE makes some dumb decisions. And they do. There's no doubt about it. But seeing as though the WWE Championship is the premier championship, anybody that they feel has earned the opportunity to wear that belt doesn't usually get it within the span of the first few months. They wait. They make them earn it. And the list goes on and on and on. Now you might say, well, what about Hulk Hogan? Hulk Hogan came back. Yeah, he came back in '83. He came back in late 83 and at the beginning of 84. Yeah, he's the exception. But times have changed. Times have changed. You know, you could say, you can sit there at your computer, you can go on camera, you can hold a mic like I'm holding right now, and you could say you hate John Cena with a passion, but at least they didn't give John Cena the WWE Championship right off the bat. They had him work for it. They had him earn it. And they waited literally almost 3 years after his debut. Yeah, they waited 3 years after his debut to not only give him the championship, but they waited about 3 years before they made him the face of the company by putting him on Raw. You see, the thing is, you can complain, bitch, and all that about some of the decisions WWE makes, but when it comes to their premier championship, to their golden ring, their Super Bowl trophy, their crystal football, if you will, when it comes to that championship, prop or no, they treat it with more respect than TNA does theirs. Because at least they make their superstars earn that championship. They make them work for it. Look how long it took CM Punk to finally get to it. Here's a guy, if you watch his DVD, the WWE probably didn't even want around, and if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, he probably wouldn't be. But here's what happens. 5 years later, he becomes WWE champion. Now, he could have easily gotten the WWE title before then, but he didn't. What did he get instead? He got the world title. Now, you might say, well, Brian, he was the world champion when he was on Raw. Yeah, he was the world champion on Raw, but guess how long that lasted? It didn't last too long. Because basically, maybe they felt he wasn't ready yet. Who knows? The point is, folks, the WWE treats their WWE title with more respect than TNA does theirs. Because at least the difference between both companies is WWE doesn't basically say, hey, within a few months of your debut, we're going to make you the WWE champion. They don't do that. Now, you might say, well, what about Brock Lesnar? Okay, that's an exception. Hulk Hogan and Brock Lesnar, I will admit, are an exception. But here's the thing. They basically, when they got Brock up there, they put the rocket ship up his butt and basically took off with him. And he actually proved that he could carry the damn ball and hit a touchdown every time. That's why they made him the champion right off the bat. Because he was dominant. But guys like himself and Hulk Hogan are the only exceptions because people were behind them. The company was not just behind them putting the rocket ships up the butt, but so was the crowd. The fans were behind them. They had all that support. So with those few exceptions, WWE a majority of the time has treated their championship with more respect than TNA has done theirs. Because TNA, if they treated their championship with any kind of respect, they wouldn't be handing it off a few months into someone's contract with them every single time. They wouldn't be handing it off to all these alumni in the first few months under the TNA contract all the time. They wouldn't be doing that. And that has been the biggest flaw they have ever had. One of the biggest flaws. I mean, when you bring an established star in there, you're supposed to help have that established star help put over your current up-and-coming roster. That's why you do it. But, you know, but again, this is just TNA stupidity at times. They don't see that. They're blind to it. And now all of a sudden they're trying to correct the wrongs that they did and make them right. How? By having a tournament? Okay, fine. You're having a tournament that's going a lot longer than WWE's did. Okay, fine. You're doing something WWE didn't do with AJ Styles, with CM Punk, by having AJ Styles go out and defend the championship in other promotions. Okay, good, fine. But again, goes back to the fact what Jeff, you mentioned, I've mentioned, everybody's mentioned. You have someone like AJ Styles that is with or without a contract right now in one of your major storylines, your hot potato of a storyline, your hottest storyline, most talked about storyline in your company today. And yet, there's a possibility that next month, as some people are probably speculating, he could show up as a surprise out of the blue entrant in the Royal Rumble for the WWE, the one company you're trying to compete with. If I'm TNA, I do whatever it takes to sign AJ, which I mentioned earlier, and I mentioned in a previous video. I believe they already have. But the thing is, again, this is just the stupidity of this company. Everything, Jeff, you have said is true. This is just the absolute stupidity of this company. The fact that they're not the fact that there's a possibility they're going to lose their franchise player and possibly lose him to the competitor that could, by signing him, put the biggest nail in the coffin. TNA needs to get their heads on straight. And that's not the only thing. I know this video is going long, and I apologize for it. But that's not the only thing, folks. See, TNA, to prove the sheer stupidity of this company, to prove how egotistical this company can get, I mentioned earlier when they signed Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff that they took the one thing that defined them and made them different among anybody else, and that's the six-sided ring. They took that array, placed it with a regular 4x4 ring, all because they think, with Hogan and Bischoff, we're in the big leagues now. We're going to compete with WWE. We're going to compete on Monday nights and beat WWE in the ratings. Yeah, again, question I asked earlier, how well did that work out for you? It didn't. And now with Hogan gone and Bischoff gone, you think that TNA would be like, you know what? We got Hogan's no longer with us. Bischoff's no longer with us. We've got rid of the Aces and Eights storyline, which was basically Bischoff's idea. So maybe we ought to go back to the way things were. Maybe we ought to bring back the six-sided ring. Maybe we ought to make things as they were so that nobody, leaves us. We don't lose no fans. We don't lose no viewers. Blah, 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 blah. You think they would realize that, but they don't. You think they would realize that, but they don't. And again, to show the sheer stupidity and egotistical ego of this company. To show the sheer stupidity of this company. Not only did they believe Hogan and Bischoff were going to take him to that next level, but they had Hogan and Bischoff convince him to leave the Impact Zone. Now, okay, I admit that was probably one of the better decisions, but what happens in the end? It ends up financially costing them. And not just because they wanted to wrap up the first run with Universal not just because they wanted to wrap up the first run with Universal Studios by having a whole week's worth of one-night stand pay-per-views. which financially cost them money because they were bringing in some talent for one night only. Then they had to pay them. Not only does that show the sheer stupidity on this company, but then you have Bischoff and Hogan saying, hey, let's go book ourselves in these bigger arenas, in these bigger venues. We're going to get a lot of people to come in for those. Yeah. How well did that work? How well did booking these bigger arenas, these bigger venues, how well has that worked out for you guys? It hasn't. It hasn't worked out well, has it? I mean, you want to know the sheer stupidity of this? You want to know the sheer stupidity of this? If you go on Ticketmaster.com, and if you would have gone on Ticketmaster.com and looked at some of the seating charts for some of the TNA events, you'd be laughing your ass off. I mean, if you take a look at the stupidity of this company back earlier this year, Lockdown, Alamo Dome, San Antonio. You basically block off 90% of the damn venue, 90% of the stadium. And all you use is like a staging area, and that's it. And you block off 90% of the rest of the venue? WWE didn't even do that. They held the 1997 Royal Rumble there. And this was at a time when they were still trailing WCW in the ratings. And yet they were able to get a huge crowd there for their product, for their show, for the Royal Rumble. And why do you want to go there? Well, to show that you can also be in the Alamo Dome? You show you can also perform at the Alamo Dome? And what kind of ending do you give us? What kind of ending do you give us for Lockdown? You give us an ending we pretty much already knew was going to happen, a revelation we pretty much already knew was revealed. And that's Bully Ray being part of Aces and Eights. And not just being a part of them, but being the leader. I mean, the sheer stupidity. The sheer stupidity. And then recently, Bound for Glory, you have like 600, 500, 600 fans, 600 plus fans at the Cox Arena in San Diego, a venue that could hold more than that. And you have pictures appearing on Twitter or on DeviantArt, on Facebook. I mean, you have people posting pictures of this arena with only 600 plus people possibly of the Cox Arena hosting Bound for Glory with an attendance of 600 plus people at most, and a majority of the rest of the arena, from what photos have shown, from what the photos that people have posted on Twitter, Facebook, and DeviantArt have shown, 95% of the arena was empty. Only 5% of it was full. And that 5% was on the right side. But not even that. Not even that. I watched the kickoff show, the pre-show, if you will. And when they were having that little tag team gauntlet to name the new number one contenders, you barely had some seats. You had some visible seats still empty. And yeah, they were getting filled up, but still visible seats? And this is like a half hour before your pay-per-view starts? Yeah, nice job, TNA. Nice job. Nice job. What's next? See, this is the sheer stupidity of this company, and it's because of this sheer stupidity that TNA has had to go back to Universal Studios. Because of this sheer stupidity, they had to go back to Universal Studios and into a soundstage that is smaller than the soundstage they had before. And you can pretty much see that. And this again is the shoe stupidity. You go off the road, you leave Universal, you go on the road. Okay, that's fine. You're on the road, you're doing whatever, right? And what happens? What happens? Huh? You have to go back to Universal Studios, and you now have to rent out a sound stage that's smaller than the original Impact Zone. Again, this is just the sheer stupidity of this company, that they have lost so much money because of all these decisions. All these decisions to go on the road and book venues that they know they're not going to sell out, signing people that they shouldn't be signing to the amount of money they're asking for. This all shows the sheer and on top of that, not even paying attention to the contract status of some of your superstars. Earlier this year, they almost lost Bobby Roode. Earlier this year. And Bobby Roode is basically like their answer to maybe being the next Triple H. As hard as that sounds, as crazy as that sounds, he's basically like their Triple H, if you will. He's got the same kind of style, wrestling style, if you will. But still, it's the sheer stupidity of this company. It's the sheer stupidity of this company that not only have they wasted their finances over the past year, not only have they have to let go of some talent, and some talent that helps certain divisions in the company, like the Knockouts division. You've had to let some of your Knockouts go, even if they were WWE alumni. You've had to let them go because of your because you couldn't do anything financially, right? Because you're losing a lot of your finances. This just proves, ladies and gentlemen, the sheer stupidity of this company. And this is a company I like to watch at times when I can. Heck, when AJ Styles went back to being the Phenomenal One and did that blending of the No One and Phenomenal One situation, when he did that a few months ago, that was the last Impact I saw. That was the last Impact I saw on television. The last one. And I like to watch Impact, but I don't like to see TNA and Impact Wrestling suffer. And yet, what they're doing, and yet the decisions they have done to themselves in the past, and probably will be doing in the future, are currently hurting them. It's hurting them to the point that not only are they back at Universal Studios and in a smaller sound stage due to the financial screw-ups, but now, and this is what everybody's laughing at them about. And I don't mean to say this as being cruel or anything. I don't want to be cruel or anything or mean. But you just got to laugh at this. You just got to laugh at this because this past year, TNA's doing all these big venues. They're doing the Alamo Dome. They're doing the Cox Arena. They're doing this. They're doing that. And yet, folks, next year, after the UK tour, which I believe is going to be the biggest crowds they're ever going to have, because let's admit it. Let's admit this is a positive for TNA. They do get decent sized crowds in the UK. For some odd reason, they do. But afterwards, this is, again, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be cruel, but you just got to laugh at the fact that almost a year or so later, not only are they back at Universal Studios, not only are they in a smaller sound stage than the original Impact Zone, but now, a year after competing in all these bigger venues, they got to go compete in high school gymnasiums. They got to book high school gymnasiums. They got to book smaller community centers. In fact, one of the upcoming one night only pay-per-views that they're going to be doing on the road now, I think what is it? What is it? Hardcore Justice, I believe. This next Hardcore Justice that they're doing is going to be in Massachusetts, if you will. And it's going to be in a place that I believe ECW has performed in. It's going to basically be in a community center, a state, basically a theater. It's basically going to be at a damn theater. How do I know? Because I looked it online, and basically where the ring would be, right above it, or right at the center of it, is the stage. A stage where you have like little plays, like little Christmas plays or Valentine plays or whatever. Basically, it'll be like the Grand Theater in Tracy, California. That's what it'll be like. The Grand Theater in Tracy, California. If you don't believe me, Google Grand Theater, Tracy, California, or heck, I'll even provide a link to a picture and you'll see it for yourself. But that's basically where the Hardcore Justice pay-per-view is going to be. And this is TNA, ladies and gentlemen. TNA and this is a year after TNA, and this is going to be a year later after TNA was trying to book these bigger places. I mean, what are we going to have lockdown this year, huh? What are we going to have lockdown, huh? Are we going to have a lockdown in a high school gymnasium? Oh, everybody, come to lockdown at so-and-so high school gym on pay-per-view. Oh, this just proves the sheer stupidity of this company, ladies and gentlemen. It just proves the sheer stupidity when it came to the finances. If I was them, and I'm a Hulkamaniac, like I say, I'm a Hulk Hogan fan. But if I was them, if I was Dixie Carter, I would have sat Hulk Hogan down, and I said, Hulk, we need you to take a pay cut. We know you got such and such amount of dates or months left on your contract, but for the time being, we need you to take a pay cut. And if you don't, then they have all the right to do this. They had all the right to do this. They could have said, we could sue. If you don't, we'll sue you. They have all the right to say, hey, they'll sue him if he doesn't take a pay cut. Now, he could have quit and all that. But again, here's another thing about sheer stupidity. Now, some people will agree that this is a good move on Hogan's part and all that. And it is a good move. But to me, if TNA knew they were going to sign him, they should have made sure they didn't let this happen. Basically, if I was TNA and I wanted Hulk Hogan, I would have signed him only if he would have agreed not to have creative control. In other words, allow me to book him the way I feel he should be booked. But again, that's the sheer stupidity of this company. You sign someone like Hulk Hogan or somebody in his, well, not at his level, but someone that has the kind of pull that he has, and you allow him to put creative control in the contract. There's nothing you can really do. Again, folks, this just proves to me all the sheer stupidity of this company. And the biggest evidence was this past year, which is now resulting in them having to not only go back to Universal Studios, not only having to perform at a smaller soundstage, but now they have to stop booking independent wrestling-like venues just to put on a live event or even put on a pay-per-view or an Impact Wrestling tape. Oh, God. This company, it's got potential to be good. It's got the potential. And yet it's still going to make mistakes. And if AJ is not under contract, and if they end up losing him, and if he ends up showing up at the Royal Rumble as a out-of-the-blue surprise entrant, that will be the biggest evidence and the biggest highlight of TNA's stupidity. It will be. If I'm Jeff Jarrett, I do not let my baby die. I do not let this company that is my baby, that I founded with my father, I do not let this company die. I go to Dixie Carter. I save as much money as I can. I get together as many resources and funds as I can, and I try to buy my company back, and I try to get her and her family out of this company and out of the wrestling business, because with them at the helm, we're screwed. This company is screwed. End of story. Now, I like Dixie Carter. I do. I think she's a smart, savvy businesswoman, but you could tell that even after 11 or 10 years, she still is learning the ins and outs of the business, but she's not learning it the way she should be learning it. And you could tell that she doesn't have a passion for the business. You can tell that. You could tell she doesn't have a passion. All I can say is TNA does get sold someday, and it's not to WWE, but if they get sold to somebody, it better be Jarrett, or it better be someone that has a passion for this business, because that's the only way this freaking company is going to survive. Again, Jeff Siegel, everything you have said is true. And everything I've said is true. If TNA doesn't get their act together, and if they don't have AJ Styles under contract, if I'm a wrestling graveyard, if I'm a wrestling cemetery, if I'm a wrestling morgue, I get a place set and ready. I have a grave dug and ready. I have a tombstone made up and ready. Because if TNA doesn't pull the act together, if they don't have AJ Styles under contract and they end up losing anybody else to lack of contracts, like say Bad Influence or Bobby Roode or Austin Aries, if they end up losing these guys later on, along with someone like AJ Styles, they better just start. You better just put the tag on the toe and announce them DOA, dead on arrival. Because that's all that company is going to be. Just have a plot ready in the Wrestling National Cemetery. Have a tombstone etched up and ready. Just have all the preparations for a burial and a memorial set. Because if TNA doesn't pull it together, that's where they're heading. And all that's going to leave is Ring of Honor as the second biggest wrestling company in the world. Or the second biggest wrestling company in the country. It's going to leave them at that position. And if that happens, it's going to open the door for two companies to come in and try to take TNA's position or take that spot as number 2 or 3. And that's FWE, Family Wrestling Entertainment, or Combat Zone Wrestling, CZW. And heck, you might as well throw in Extreme Rising and maybe even the House of Hardcore. Because those will be the kind of companies that if they see an opening, will try their best, either together or individually, to take that number 3 or 2 spot in wrestling. As the number 3 or 2 company in the country behind WWE, if TNA doesn't pull the weight. If TNA doesn't turn around and get their shit together, They're heading straight for the wrestling. They're heading straight for the wrestling graveyard. They're heading straight for the wrestling mausoleum, if you will. They're heading straight for the morgue. And that's all I have to say. TNA, everybody, myself, Jeff Shiegel of OTRS Central, Tree of Woe Show, The British Fist, Chase Oliver 68, NoDQ.com, Jeff Meacham, Aaron Rift. Every single fan that's a wrestling fan on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the overall internet, and Google+. We all ask of you, get your shit together, TNA. Don't lose AJ Styles. And stop desecrating your championships, especially your world title. Stop it. If you're going to sign big alumni names, don't give them an automatic title shot a few months in. Make them wait. Make them earn it. Don't try to do something just because you want to prove to WWE, hey, look what we did. Look who we made champion. Because it's going to hurt you in the end, and it has. TNA, all of us that I've mentioned, beg of you. We ask of you. We plead with you. Don't screw up anymore. Sign AJ. Keep him signed. Don't screw anything up. It's like an old saying. You've made your bed, TNA. Now, as of right now, until you get your finances and your overall act together, you have to lie in it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Jeff, everybody watching, I know this was an hour long. I apologize. Take your time and watch, listening to this. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I will talk to you all later. God bless. Take care. Peace out.